All right, let's get the show on the road. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 35. This is the one about Bruce Lee. So I finally get a chance to be political, because I realized when I was doing final edit for today's program that I had written the one about Bruce Lee. What did he mean when he said or wrote that? So I have to be like our president and do a walk back of. But unlike him, I didn't make the gaffe and then have to dial it back. Right? I'm correcting myself even before I say anything. So I really should have written the one about Bruce Lee, what I think he meant when he said or wrote that. So that's my disclaimer, right? So it seems to me that a lot of what Cedro Bruce Lee taught can be characterized as the seeking of balance, or perhaps even the seeking of perfection, right? So the genesis for today's show came from, I'm currently reading Matthew Polly's new book, Bruce Lee, A Life. I don't know if you guys have seen this, right? And wait, okay, bear with me a second, I gotta change something here. I don't like the look of that. Okay, let's see. Is that better? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Right. So, and it occurred to me that in the past 6 months, right, in this year, when we commemorate the 45th anniversary of the passing of Bruce Lee, there have been two books, at least two new books released about him. There's Matthew Polly's book, and then Steve Kerridge has Bruce Lee, the authorized visual history, right? So we have these two. So, as I was saying, the seeking of balance, or even perhaps the seeking of perfection, right? So, over the years, a lot of us have been exposed to a whole heap of Bruce Lee's sayings or his writings. You know, if you go to any of the quotes libraries on the what do you call it? On the internet, right? Then Bruce Lee is right there alongside all of the other historic purveyors of wisdom. So I thought that today we would take a sampling, a look at some choice samplings, and endeavor to analyze them a little bit and see what we come up with, right? So let's go. So when I started the research for today's show, I wasn't sure exactly how to go about it. So then ultimately I decided that I just open up the first book that I grabbed in my library and use the first saying that I found, right? So what happened was I happened to start somewhat chronologically, right? So Chinese Kung Fu, the philosophical art of self-defense was the first one. And right up here on page 7 in the introduction, right, it says, it is true that the mental aspect of Kung Fu is the desired end. However, in order to achieve this stage, technical skill of the art has to come first, right? So there we go. It is true that the mental aspect of Kung Fu is, the desired end. However, in order to achieve this stage, technical skill of the art has to come first. So, right from the get-go, Bruce Lee's talking about the balance between the mental aspect of Kung Fu and the physical aspect of Kung Fu, right? So, and this is a book that he wrote in 1963, I think it was, right? So this is something that all of us as martial artists struggle with at different points on our martial art journey, right? Because there's a point where it seems like the mind is not cooperating with the body and it's not helping you to do the things that you're trying to learn, right? And to move the way that you're trying to move. So once you learn to endure and get past that awkward stage, right? Then we come out on the other end, and then we look a little bit more like if we know what we're doing, right? Okay, so the next book that I pulled was Words of a Dragon. All right, that's this one. And this was page 70, and it says, I didn't highlight it, so I gotta find it here. That's 69, Woodsy. Okay, it says 90% of Oriental self-defense is baloney. It's organized despair. I teach the Junfan method. I stress simplicity, directness, and non-classical instruction. It isn't ritual and it isn't sport, it is self-defense, right? So to me, this is from a Seattle newspaper interview at the end of 1966, right? So I find that in this saying, Bruce Lee was trying to do what he called express the utmost with the minimum, because he goes on to say, at long range, you use a kick to the shins in the same way a boxer uses his left jab. At closer range, you use a finger jab to the eyes or to the throat. Even closer, you employ a curved arm blow to the head, the ribs, or the solar plexus. When you're in a clinch, you use your elbow, knee, and the instep kick. I think it's kind of interesting. This is 1966, and Bruce Lee was talking about being in the clinch, right? I wonder if that's like some dramatic license or scriptural license taken here, right? Anyhow, so you see what I mean. Everything that he says there is an attempt to be practical and to be logical, right? Using that which he considered to be the most useful at that point. Right? So you could say it is seeking the perfect response, the perfect tool for the job at hand, right? So it goes back to our central theme, right? The next one was this one. You know, I realized that we haven't done a whole lot from this, and I might have to fix that. So this is The Warrior Within, and it's page 79, and it's in the section, it's in the chapter on relationships, and it's in the section on life and death, right? And we read that Bruce Lee once said this is a 1972 interview in Hong Kong, and he said, through the ages, the end for heroes is the same as ordinary men. They all died and gradually faded away from the memory of man. But when we are still alive, we have to understand ourselves, discover ourselves, and express ourselves. In this way, we can progress, right? So I think that here, he's talking about while you're alive, constantly moving forward, right? It's like if you're alive, you shouldn't just be, taking up space or using up oxygen, right, so to speak. You got to be out there doing things to improve yourself, right? And sometimes people hesitate because they think, well, if you're talking about improving yourself, what about other people, right? And I think there is the argument that could be made that one of the best ways to help other people is to improve yourself, because a highly developed you is capable and able to meaningfully contribute to the well-being of others, right? So the emphasis on self-development is probably not a terrible thing, right? Okay, so moving on. This is going to be another short broadcast, guys, so you're not going to have to spend too much time with me here. Then on page 135 of one of our favorites, right? Commentary on the Martial Way. We read that, I love this one. Movement is the skill of fighting, right? And the timing of movement is even the skill of skill. But only timing is not enough. Movement should cooperate with hands and feet to carry out defense or attack. Furthermore, it should keep one's body in balance, right? This one is, I think this is one of the coolest things that Bruce Lee has ever written or said. Movement is the skill of fighting, and the timing of movement is even the skill of skill. But only timing is not enough. Movement should cooperate with hands and feet to carry out defense or attack. Furthermore, it should keep one's body in balance. So first he talks about learning how to move well. And then he talks about how to time that movement. And then he points out that timing by itself is not enough, because you have to get back to being able to move well. So if that's not all about balance, right, then I don't know what is. It reminds me of something that I've mentioned before, that comes from Chris Kent, my Jeet Kune Do senior, where I'll paraphrase, he says that Jeet Kune Do is about acquiring the ability to make your body do what you want it to do when you want it done, right? Okay, all right, so we're moving on. Page 69 of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, right? Old version, right? We read, as an event approaches, the athlete often notices a feeling of weakness. And then Bruce Lee goes on to describe the sensations. And then he says, the experienced athlete recognizes these sensations not as an inner weakness, but as an inner surplus. These signs indicate a preparedness for violent activity. So I want to read that one again, right? As an event approaches, well, I'll ad-lib a little bit. As an event approaches, the amateur athlete often notices a feeling of weakness. And then he goes on to say, the experienced athlete recognizes these sensations not as an inner weakness, but as an inner surplus. These signs indicate a preparedness for violent activity. So I've not spent a whole lot of time in, like martial arts competition and what have you. So that aspect doesn't apply to me in that way. But the nervousness that he's talking about, I have experienced something similar throughout all the years that I have taught, Jeet Kune Do classes. I've been teaching for over 30 years, and I dare say that there's never a day where I don't have some kind of butterfly sensation before a class starts, right? It's not as bad as it used to be, all right? I mean, I remember when we first started junior Jeet Kune Do classes, right? Because previous to that, I had always considered Jeet Kune Do to be a thing that was designed only for adults, or primarily for adults. And then some of my adult students, they asked me if I could open up a class for their kids. And so we started taking kids at age 7, and that became our junior Jeet Kune Do program. And so that wasn't bad. I started to get used to that. And then somebody asked us to start for 4-year-old kids, and that became our Little Dragons program, right? Ultimately, it got to the point where I could handle a class with like 15 kids in it by myself. As a matter of fact, I remember once Sifu Asano was here in Miami to do his annual seminar with us, and he was over at the academy during the evening, and Vit was teaching class at the time, and Sifu Dan was amazed that Vit could handle a class with like 10 kids in it, right? Because he was telling how at the Asano Academy, I mean, this is like 10, 12 years ago, right? He was talking about how, their kids running around, and one kid is doing this and the other kid is doing that. So he was really amazed at Vit's ability to keep control over a class of children, right? Okay, all right, page 208 of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. It says, learning Jeet Kune Do is not a matter of seeking knowledge or accumulating stylized pattern, but is discovering the cause of ignorance, right? So this is another one that I modify, so to speak, right? Let me read it to you again. Learning Jeet Kune Do is not a matter of seeking knowledge or accumulating stylized pattern, but is discovering the cause of ignorance. So I adjust that somewhat so that it becomes, learning Jeet Kune Do is not just a matter of seeking knowledge or just accumulating stylized pattern. Instead, it is about discovering the cause of your own ignorance. Because I think that learning Jeet Kune Do, it is to a certain degree a matter of seeking knowledge, without a doubt. There is a period where you accumulate stylized pattern, right? But then you have to go beyond. So it's that last part, the part about the discovering the causes of your own ignorance, right? Often people misinterpret ignorance to mean stupidity, which is not what it is at all, because it comes from the Latin ignorare, which means to not know. So Jeet Kune Do is about discovering the cause, the reasons why you don't know something, right? So you don't know how to handle something. So how do you fix not knowing? You go out and you seek the instruction, and you learn what it takes to remove the not knowing. So I think that to a certain degree, learning Jeet Kune Do is a matter of seeking knowledge, but it is not only or not just restricted or limited to a matter of seeking knowledge, right? So that's it. That's pretty much all I had for you guys today, right? So to finish this up and come full circle to where we started, talking about the seeking of balance or the seeking of perfection, right? Remember that Bruce Lee said that balance is when you run like hell to catch it, right? So to me, that means you keep moving throughout your life, seeking to maintain dynamic balance, not a static balance, right? If you get what I mean. And so, as he said in Striking Thoughts, so I pulled this one off the web because I couldn't put my hands on my copy of Striking Thoughts. But he says, don't neglect life by worrying about death. I don't know what is the meaning of death, but I'm not afraid to die. And I go on nonstop going forward. Even though I, Bruce Lee, may die someday without fulfilling all of my ambitions, I will have no regrets. I did what I wanted to do, and what I've done with sincerity and to the best of my ability. You can't expect much more from life, right? Okay, so after I post this, you guys can rewind that, and because it's a fairly long passage, you can rewind it and listen to it again, right? Okay, so that's it for today's broadcast. Thanks everybody for checking in, and today's Bruce Lee shirt. There we go. Okay, all right. Feel free to share this, like, comment, ask me questions if you want. I'll review everything after I post the video up on the page. Quick heads up, the I Love Jeet Kune Do Quick Skills Series, Volume 1, still available at ilovejeetkunዶ.com. And an announcement, on Friday the 20th, Friday the 20th of July, significant day for those of us in the Jeet Kune Do world, I will be doing the Jeet Kune Do dialogue with one of my favorite Jeet Kune Do guys in the whole world, right? And that's Sifu Burton Richardson of Jeet Kune Do Unlimited. So that's this coming Friday, July 20th at 3 p.m. Next Tuesday is Sifu Dan and Asano's birthday. I'm planning something a little bit special for that, involving Facebook Live. So I'll probably send a notification out about that over the weekend. Right? So that's it. I'll see you here next week, 3 p.m. for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Until then, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.